Hey, my name is Frank. Welcome to my channel where I talk about all things bookish. Today I am going to discuss my spoiler-free thoughts on River Solomon's Model Home. This is the third book I've read by them, and funnily enough, it's always by accident that I stumble across their work. Sometimes I don't always pay attention to the authors I'm reading and focus more on the story itself. So you can imagine my delight when I went to check out more works by them only to find that I've already read most of their other books. That's not to say their other books aren't memorable, it's just to say that names fall out of my head all of the time. The first one I read was An Unkindness of Ghosts, which is a dystopian sci-fi novel set in the future on a spacecraft. I don't want to give too much away, so you should just go check it out. The second book was The Deep, which is sort of like a creative inception. It's a book based on a concept album that was based on obscure lyrics of a song from the 80s, I believe. So quick overview, Model Home is by far my favorite book I have read by this author. At its heart, it is a gothic horror that follows three siblings from Texas who have been haunted for the majority of their lives by their home in the Oak Creek gated community in the suburbs of Dallas. After receiving cryptic texts from their mother's phone, Esri returns to their childhood home after years of estrangement with their parents. I will say, if you plan to read this, check the trigger warnings because this book touches on some really heavy subjects. It touches on abuse, racism, sexual assault, mental health issues, neurodivergence, and queerness. I listened to the audiobook that was narrated by Gabby Beans, which is a really cute name. And I have to say this was by far the best narration I've ever heard from an audiobook narrator. Gabby does a phenomenal job at emulating the emotions of each character as well as giving them their own distinct voice without much more than just subtle and nuanced changes per character, which was really enjoyable to listen to. So what exactly makes this a gothic horror? Well, between the personification of 667 Acacia Drive, the constant questioning of reality and fiction, both from the characters in the book and as the reader, as well as the elements of the supernatural and spiritual, Solomon has emulated the true nature of the gothic genre, in my opinion. So some of my favorite things about this book, their prose bounces between lyrical and raw. The language they use will have you feeling like you're in a dream one moment and then getting punched in the next. Each character is so well-rounded. I felt like Rivers invited the reader to sit down at the table with Esri and listen to their story, as opposed to being on the outside looking in as a reader to a book. As a trans person who is the eldest of my siblings and has two younger sisters, the three siblings in this book reminded me a lot of my own family dynamics, which for me created a deeper connection to the characters themselves. I was in awe the entire time about where the story was going. I tried to piece it together, but it just kept surprising me, and I loved that. It felt like River Solomon used each chapter to peel back the story layer by layer. While most of it was explained in chronological order, Solomon uses time jumps to expose you to just enough information from flashbacks and memories that allow you to unravel the story. You're discovering it. It just felt so well-intentioned. It felt like everything that Solomon was trying to do came across in a very organic way. And the pacing of this book was perfect. Truly, the imagery of certain scenes and character experiences in the book felt so human and so raw that it was like you were standing there with them. It is just a great signifier of fantastic writing, but considering the scenes in which I personally felt those things, it provoked a very visceral reaction in me, which I think is a good thing. River Solomon has a way of bringing their characters to life in a way that I personally don't often get from a lot of the books that I read, and I really appreciated that. I felt very connected to these characters in a way that when I'm reading a book, I don't always feel that. I felt like every single character had a lived experience that was just so well articulated that it made them just that much more real. I want to play you all a couple of clips from the audiobook that I feel will give you a good idea of what you can expect of Solomon's writing. These are moments that I felt particularly drawn to for various reasons. One being that it is just beautiful writing that I feel deserves recognition, okay? The other being that I felt as though it humanized the characters in a way that made them undeniably real, or it provoked imagery that I feel was relevant to the tones overall of this story. I've put the clips in 1.5 speed so that I don't take up too much time, but feel free to slow it down a bit on your video settings if you want to hear it as it was narrated. Okay, so this first clip is in the beginning of the novel where our main character, Esri, is in their home in England after receiving a slew of, frankly, just strange texts from their mother's phone.
Make tea. Loose. I turn on the kettle, startling at the turbulence of its process. It whirs too loudly for how new it is, like something dead has nested inside and is trying to heave itself out. It wants a proper burial, to go home. This house lures in animals with a death wish. Last spring, a skylark made her nest in the crawl space beneath the ground floor, where slugs ate her hatchlings. I witnessed the tiny slaughter live when damp, rotted floorboards gave way beneath me, and I sank into the underhouse den. It's not so far off, then, to think something dead lives in my kettle. The water that I pour from it has tasted off for months. Metallic, like blood. Every day, minuscule flakes of what could be dried skin appear in my morning brew. Online, they say it's limescale, but I'm not reassured.
Now, this is just one example of how Solomon's writing takes something as mundane as making a mug of tea and turns it into a horrific and graphic experience in which the reader is left thinking about the horrors and cycles of life and death. Truly beautiful. The next section I'm going to play you is when our character Ezra is describing their current decaying home and comparing it to their childhood house.
18 Heathcock Way is the opposite in every way from the house my sisters and I grew up in. Narrow, wet, rotting, and old, 18 flaunted its failings. The palatial suburban new build of my youth had been a rotting thing, too, only it was a rot no one but my family was ever allowed to see. The tangible failures of 18 are a relief compared to my childhood home's invisible tyrannies. Mold blackens her walls, fixtures, and tiles. Mice nibble at her wiring. Nothing like the cursed McMansion my sisters and I fled. Mama and Pop have a brand. That brand is black excellence. It's the talented 10th. It is perfectly coiffed kids in a giant house no cracker ever thought a family like this could afford. Perfect lawn, perfect children. There is nothing black or excellent about 18 Heathcock Way.
Solomon uses the personification of 18 Heathcock Way to illustrate Ezri's internal landscape. Much like the house, they are constantly falling apart. We learn a bit more in chapter 4 about some of the ways in which they struggle with their mental health and have a difficult time taking care of themselves and their daughter Elijah. It also exposes us to one of the major root causes of Ezri's childhood trauma. Now, I could continue to add more clips of Solomon's writing, but at that point, I might as well just include the entire book because that's how good it was. So as far as the ending went, okay, I'm not going to spoil too much. I don't want to disclose too much about the ending in case you haven't read it and you plan to, but I will say that this ending was perfect for what this story was. Do I wish that the characters received the justice they deserved? Yes. But I also know that Solomon ended this in a way that was realistic, and I think they do a great job of doing that, while also giving the reader some hope that Ezri and their siblings, as well as Elijah, will be okay. It wasn't a fairy tale ending, and I'm glad for that, because if it had been, then I would have considered it a betrayal of the story itself. Solomon takes so much time and care illustrating such a gruesome story of family dynamics, generational trauma, and just visceral experiences that to end it in a fairy tale would have felt out of place. So in conclusion, I feel like this is some of the best writing that I've had the pleasure of reading. Definitely one of my favorite reads of 2025. River Solomon has such a unique voice and writing style that even without meaning to, I keep getting drawn back to their work. This story really stuck with me, and I'm eager to read Sorrowland, which is the only published novel they have that I haven't read. And I'm just excited to see what River Solomon is going to create in the future, okay? I'm not here to influence you, but I will say that if you are looking for a novel that centers queerness, neurodivergence, and Black characters in a way that is creative, heart-wrenching, and sincere, you should check it out. Let me know in the comments if you've read this and what you thought. Do you agree with the things that I mentioned? Do you disagree with anything I said? Or do you have anything that you'd like to add? I would love to know how you guys felt about this book because it was truly phenomenal. 5-star read for me. If you've stuck around until now, thank you. Feel free to like and subscribe for more bookish content. Until next time, y'all.